Hello, everybody. I'm Charlie. I'm a fearless leader here at Momentus. Welcome to Ghost Hunting 101 with Amy Bruni. Very excited to have you today for this spooky fun. I'm going to try not to do puns today. It's not going well for me. I've already done so many puns that my kids don't look me directly in the eye. But for you, I will try to withhold dad jokes. We have a lot to get through today, so I'm not going to talk too long, but I just wanted to say our chat is now open. Would love to hear from you, where you're from. We'd love to, also the Q&A box is open, so if you have questions for Amy, use the Q&A box, because sometimes the chat gets going, people start talking, and then we can't see your question. If you have a meet and greet ticket, just stick around right here, and we will commence meet and greet liftoff. I don't know why I'm using a space analogy and a ghost hunting thing right after. So just stick around right here, and then we'll go right into it. But I'm really excited. We've been doing these fun classes and experiences with Amy, and they're always a blast. She is funnier than I am. So I'm going to bring her in right now so that we can all get this party started. Amy, are you with us today? You want to turn on your camera?
Oh my gosh, I should have just not started my video and I should have just left you there.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, leave me hanging.
Wait, can you hear us?
I don't have any technology with me to find you, so that, I'm on my own.
Well, the good news is I'm still alive, and
Okay.
so it's all good.
Allegedly, sure.
Allegedly. Hi, everybody. Charlie, it's lovely to see you as
Good to
always.
see you. As always, yeah.
We always have a lot of fun. Oh wow, I see a lot of new names. I'm very excited, but I also see some regulars. I love that some of you are repeat offenders because you know that I'm completely unpredictable and that things I probably said last time, I won't say this time, or maybe I changed my mind on some things. Who freaking knows, right? So,
Can confirm. Can confirm.
you're like, I kind of felt like you were afraid I wasn't going to show up today, by the way.
Was I? Did I text you like, hey, you good? Yes, maybe I
Well,
did.
I know this
Maybe
morning
did.
I went to that wreath making class and I posted on Instagram and stuff, and I'm like,
Yep.
this is going to terrify Charlie. He's going to think that I forgot all about this class.
Yep. And I was like, is she ghosting me? I don't know. All right, I'm gonna leave. I'm sorry. There's so many. There are a lot of familiar names and a lot of new names here. Do you want to just, for anyone who has not met you before, who's a first timer here, do you want to sort of give a little bio and introduce yourself?
Yeah, for sure. So for people who are not familiar with me, I assume most of you are, but I'm Amy Bruni. I am a paranormal researcher and investigator. I've been at this now for decades. I kind of like live and breathe the paranormal, and it is like it's not just a livelihood for me, it's my passion. And so I've been very fortunate to be on a number of TV shows. I've got many books out. I have a podcast. I have a paranormal travel company. But I've managed to do all these things with like my methodology always being like, I will keep my integrity intact. Like I'm not a sensationalist. I'm a realist. I'm a skeptic, but I'm also very, spiritual and passionate. And so I think, I've managed to do this. And so I love talking to people about it and teaching people about it. So here I am.
Yeah, and I just want to chime in and say it is always refreshing because you do have like one foot firmly on the ground and one foot sort of in the what if of it all. And it's always been a great balance talking to you about this because, there are people sort of in both camps. It's like it's pure this way or that way, pure, and it can get into areas where there's like, there's a lot to explore here. And I feel like doing it from that perspective has been really helpful to hear you. And it's been very educational.
Well, thank you. You're basically an expert now.
I am not an expert. But I've heard you speak now, and I am more confident in your way. I don't know many other paranormal researchers, but I do appreciate the way in which you handle the topics and with such sensitivity. Because as you'll hear today, there are ways of not doing that, and there are ways of being, sort of practical and have good manners in the process, I guess.
Yes, I try.
Well, I'll let you take it away.
Right.
Yeah, again, if you have any questions for Amy, use that Q&A box, and I'll be keeping an eye on the chat if you want to ask and talk about anything, and love to hear from you all. All right.
Amazing. Thank you, Charlie. All right. Hey, gang. All right. So I have some notes here. I did show Charlie before. I printed my notes. And of course, there was Skibbity Toilet in the middle of it because I have a 12-year-old child. And for Charlie, did you want to see a close-up? So for April Fool's Day, I went upstairs to go to bed, and she had covered my bed in this printout. There were like 100 of them. And so there were some leftovers when I went to print my notes for today. And so I thought I would share that for you guys too, because I can't be in this alone. So anyways, that being said, let's talk about investigation. So I love this like kind of 3-course concept. Today we're going to do like high level, like ghost hunting 101. There are some things I'm going to talk about today though that we'll dive deeper in with class 2 and 3. So just keep that in mind, and I'll just kind of, let you know when we get to those points. But before we get too far into it, I just want to talk a little bit about like my methodology when it comes to investigating. And I know a lot of people who share these methodologies and ideas as well. And feel free to like take notes. I would recommend that. But first and foremost, I'm a very respectful investigator. I'm going to treat every spirit as though they're like a living person in front of me, how I would treat any of you in person, and unless you do me wrong. But I'm a very respectful investigator. I think that's very important. I always assume the best in people, living or dead, until they prove otherwise. I'm very big on historical accuracy. I'm kind of over like proving the existence of ghosts to people at this point. I really couldn't care less if someone does not believe in ghosts. So I'm not really into trying to prove them anymore. But my history will always be right. I love documentation. I love research. I love getting my facts straight. And I think sometimes one of the byproducts of paranormal investigating is that we're able to kind of set the records straight on some of this like folklore and legends kind of stuff, and like actually get history correct. So that is a big motivator for me. Also, I'll never speak in absolutes. Like, I'll never tell you for sure what a ghost is, where a ghost came from. I won't even tell you 100% that ghosts exist. I just very much like to talk kind of in like, I like to talk about my theories and my ideas, and I have a lot of experiences and things to kind of back them up, but I'm still not going to say 100% what the paranormal is. Yeah, so, but like I was saying, like, I don't know anything for sure. I'm not afraid to say, I don't know. If someone comes to me and they're like, this really weird thing happened, and I'm like, I don't know. Like, I'm totally fine saying, I don't know. But like I said, I have a lot of thoughts and I have a lot of theories that some people may or may not agree with, and that's totally okay. I'm not ever going to fault someone for not agreeing with me. So I love discussion. My ideas change constantly, and I think that's really important with what we do, is being able to kind of step back and go, you know what, maybe I'm going to switch my thought process on this. I'm assuming a lot of you either have investigated. I'm going to keep the Q&A up too, so feel free to interrupt me at any point during this with questions. So I'm assuming there's a lot of you who either have dabbled in investigating or are thinking about investigating. And I think that the biggest thing before you do that is to think about why you would like to investigate. Why do you want to look for ghosts? I know for me, when I first started investigating, well, I would say my first, like, when I was a kid, I investigated with my dad in kind of a more organized way, but that was just because he was trying to trick me to go to historical locations, and learn stuff. But in high school, I definitely was guilty of maybe, going into places I shouldn't have, but for the thrill of it, which I do not recommend. Um, and so, is it, but like that was my reasoning. Like I was interested in ghosts, but I also wanted to like kind of have that thrill and like have that moment, right? And so that's very fair. Some people have had a crazy experience and they want to know if it was real and they're trying to like figure it out and they want answers. Some people like, I mean, I know there's a lot of people out there that are either religious or maybe not religious, but are looking for answers to the afterlife. Like, is this your belief system? Are you like, okay, what happens when we die? Like, and so that's another reason. And then there's some people who think they're going to be famous YouTubers, which I do not recommend. So, look at Charlie. We neither confirm nor deny any trespassing. I think the statute of limitations is over, right? 19, I don't want to say it, I'm old. Hey, but anyways, so when you really think about why you want to investigate, that's going to affect where and how you investigate, right? So before we like get into methods and whatnot, I encourage people to like think about what a ghost might be. So even if you're in it just for the thrill, put yourself in the ghost shoes for a hot second, right? I think we walk into a lot of places and we assume that they know what we're doing, or sometimes we assume, like one of my biggest pet peeves with investigators, and we'll go into this more with the how to like talk to ghosts class. I know there's a name for it, but it's escaping me right now. But we'll assume either they can't hear us or they are like 4 years old and we're talking to them like they're little kids. And I'm very guilty of this. Sometimes Steve Gonzalez would do this on Ghost Hunters. He would yell at them, like, but not in a sense of like yelling at them. He would be like, hello, ghost. And I would be like, I think they're like ghosts, not deaf. Like I think, and so, but like, think about what they're seeing and what, Charlie, I can't look at this chat or I'm gonna get distracted. Think about what they're seeing on your end, if you're in a situation where people have investigated before, they will probably be familiar with what you're doing. But if you're in a situation where no investigators have ever been there before, they're gonna be like, what's happening here, right? And then also, you have to give them a reason to talk to you, right? Like to interact with you. I think this is where like kind of the idea of provoking comes in. Like some people just want evidence. They don't necessarily care about the ghost aspect. They just want evidence of a ghost. They want to be scared. So that's when they go in and they're like, come at me, ghost. So they start antagonizing. But then there's people who are genuinely conversational and want to help and will ask, probing questions and whatnot. And I think you get a lot more meaningful interaction like that. So I always tell people that, so obviously you want to humanize your ghosts overall. That's the reality. Like if we believe that ghosts are the spirits of people who have passed on, then we should humanize them accordingly, right? Keep your expectations low. That's always big before you start investigating. Ghosts are not there to perform for us as much as we would like them to, and they might not want to talk. Here's the thing, like with being on a paranormal reality show, so we'll take Kindred Spirits, for example, if you've watched that show. When we film Kindred, we're in a location for 4 or 5 nights. And so when you're watching the show, you see 43 minutes of 5 days worth of footage, and 27 of that, I believe, is investigating. And so, of course, over those nights, they're going to take like the cream of the crop moments and put them in those 27 minutes. So it looks like we walk in and we're like, hey, and the ghost is like, how's it going? It very much looks like it's that fast. But I take it from someone who investigates often and investigated for a long time before I was on TV. Many times you walk in and literally nothing happens for hours. And so just sometimes you have to think of the moment and like what you're doing and what you're experiencing and who you're with as the positive. Like always look at it like, yes, I would love to, have a paranormal experience and I would love to get some evidence. I would love to figure out what's going on here. But the reality is I'm in this really cool space. I'm with people who really love doing this with me. You have to think of like the other parts of it, and that needs to become the focus. And then the paranormal activity is like a really cool bonus. And so I tell people that a lot. Anybody who's been to a Strange Escapes knows that too. I'm always like, don't focus on getting activity, focus on everything else that's happening around you and live in the now, right? Okay, so you've decided you're ready to investigate, you want to go on an investigation, and now you have to figure out like, how do I investigate? Where do I go, right? There are many avenues to take when it comes to investigating, and you have to think about the kind of implications of each, okay? I very much recommend that when you first start investigating, you go to a location that is like a group investigation type place, or a place that allows investigators in regularly. Like obviously we all are like, I want to go investigate the Stanley, or I want to go investigate the Queen Mary, which actually the Queen Mary does have group investigations. But there's also just a number of locations around. Like there's been a lot on Haunted Road this season. Like I just did the McIntyre Villa. What's the other one? I just did Sally House, Malvern Manor. Like there's all these places, a lot of them in the Midwest, that you can literally just rent for the night. And they're very it's a very controlled environment. It's safe. Sometimes I do organized group investigations. You'd be surprised how many of those are around you. They're the perfect way to get your feet wet and decide like, is this something I want to continue doing? And so I highly recommend that's the way you first go in. You don't want to start like decide you're an investigator and be like, put it out there and start trying to help families and stuff for a number of different reasons. But sneaking into abandoned location, don't. Oops. Though I guess I was going to talk about that now. Don't sneak into abandoned locations. Sorry, Charlie. And then this was Amy's last Momentus class ever. It was so sad that day. Oh, thanks. I see people talking about Strange Escapes. Thanks. I love investigating with the Strange Escapes folks. It's my favorite. My pen just broke. So anyways, it was a ghost. I wanted to cite, because for example, recently, I live in Newport, Rhode Island, and recently some kids broke into this place. I think it was called Bell's Mansion or something. And this is kind of a well-known abandoned location. And they broke into, I don't know if they were ghost hunting or what, but they were on the roof and it collapsed. And it was like 4 teenagers, and like one of them like shattered their pelvis and stuff. And, so it was kind of it wasn't good, but I mean, like it was a good example of why you shouldn't go into abandoned buildings. There was also a group of ghost hunters that once found a body in a building that they walked into that was abandoned. And so I kind of want to find a body, but that's a whole other thing. We almost found one once, but anyways, that things you shouldn't say out loud. Anyway, so Adam and I always joke that we really want to, like one day we're going to find a body. It's going to happen. But we did find one in Massachusetts. Anyways, that's another class. Yeah, we did. It's also a whole thing. The police were involved. Yeah. See, I told you. Somebody said they snuck into haunted places abandoned places as a teenager. I feel like that was way more prevalent when we were kids, like back in the 90s, because there just wasn't as much surveillance. And I don't know, I just feel like we could do whatever we wanted. We just had to be home before dark, right? This is the quality instruction you guys paid for. Thanks. Anyways, okay. So I do want to talk real quick about investigating a home or business, just because Like someone wrote me the other day and he was so excited, and like I hate bursting people's bubbles, but sometimes like I feel like I have to be a realist with them so they don't like put themselves in like a harmful situation. But someone said to me, like sent me this message about how excited they were because a family was having activity in their neighborhood, and like the kids were having issues and all the stuff, and they asked him to come investigate. And so this was a guy who has never investigated. Um, he just got some equipment, and whenever you walk into someone's house, this is important to think too, vice versa. Like if you have someone walking into your house, you don't know these people, you don't know what's going on behind the scenes, you don't know what their situation is, you don't know if they're safe. And same thing when you have a paranormal team come in. I always tell people, like, before you have a team come in to investigate your place, make sure all these people have references and background checks, right? And no, you don't have to leave. Anyways, that's a whole other talk. But and so there is a liability there when you start investigating homes and businesses, and especially homes involving kids, because as hard as it is to say out loud, a lot of the kind of the things that people will say to me about kids being haunted, oh, they're waking up with bruises, they're seeing a dark shadow man, they're crying and terrified at night, like, they don't want to go to school, they see it, and a lot of that is also symptoms of abuse. Not and it's just not something you ever want to assume, but you definitely don't want to give someone, sometimes people, there's also mental issues that can be afoot as well. And so some people, they're in a situation that's so tragic or hard, medically or mentally, or family-wise, that they want the paranormal there to blame. Like it's easier for them to blame a ghost or a demon or something than to face reality. And then you become the scapegoat. You become the person that told them that it was a ghost or it was a demon. And so unless you're very, very ready for that, like I don't do cases with kids anymore unless there's like very extensive, like they have been extensively like medically cleared and whatnot. And so those are just things to think about before you start walking into people's homes and businesses. We get very excited when someone asks us to investigate, but there is so much more at stake than we realize, I think. So just something to think about. So that's why I recommend group investigations first in places that may have history that has been pretty well documented already. Before you walk in, it's always nice, like if you're going into a group investigation, do some research on your own. We'll get into research in one of the other classes. That's one of my favorites. And do your research on your own. Try to think outside the box. Remember, these ghosts have been asked every question under the sun. And also, in my opinion, most ghosts don't want to talk about how they died or why they died, or they're kind of over that part. So try to think of something else that will initiate conversation. So let's see. Okay, so let me see how much I have to get through. Oh, this is great. The other thing to think about is people always ask me, like, how do you protect yourself? This is a big thing. This is probably one of the questions I get more than anything, is like, how do you protect yourself? And this is honestly like up to the individual. For me personally, I hear a lot of people that like to say a prayer, or they'll like to bring a crystal or a religious medal or something. For me personally, I like to go into investigations just knowing that I am enough, because if I'm relying on something like a crystal or a medal or whatever, and I forget it, then I instantly feel weaker. I feel more open to being taken advantage of. I'm suddenly like, what's the word? I feel more vulnerable. And so I personally don't like to rely on anything but myself. And that's worked for me thus far. But I'm also like the most cheerful ghost hunter you'll ever meet. And so I'm always like, I walk into investigations smiling, I'm happy, I'm not like doom and gloom. I'm just very, like, I try to be upbeat, because I feel like sometimes because we're dealing with death, it's our instinct to walk in kind of like solemn. And I don't think that's necessarily the way to go. So anyways, let me see here. Sorry, Mr. X just got home. He's walking around. All right.
I thought it was a ghost, to be honest with you. I thought there
It
was
could
ghosts.
be. My
Could be a
house
ghost.
is very old and there are ghosts here. Actually, if anybody's in the paranormal circle, now there's a creepy man driving by. There's a lot happening here. Normally we do this at night and I can't see anything. Anyways, if anybody's in the paranormal circle, we know that I have a attic. It's the dolls in the attic. They know. I have a 24/7 surveillance on a bunch of haunted artifacts in the attic, and that camera has been messed with nonstop since we put it up there. So first I walked up and it was unplugged, and then I walked up and it was just the computer was just turned off, and then I went up and the battery was dead, and then now the laptop just has imploded and it won't work anymore. And so we have to put up a whole new laptop up there. So it's been quite the adventure, let me tell you. Anyways, I digress, which I'm very good at. Okay, so we've gone through this, we've gone through that, gone through the protecting yourself. Like I said, if you want to do something, feel free. I know some people want, like Steve Gonzalez still says a prayer before he investigates. I'm trying to think of what else. I don't know. I'm trying to think of any. I think Chip usually he has a little religious medal that he keeps with him, but he doesn't really say a prayer. I think that's pretty much it. But Chip is like, he loves a good demon. He's like, it's a demon all the time. So anyways, let me see here. What to bring. So you're on your like first investigation, or you're fairly new at it. What are you going to bring? I always tell people, especially when you first start investigating, don't get bogged down too much with equipment. It's very easy to get like excited and be like, I want a REM pod, I want the flashy lights, I want a K2, I want this. I am a big fan of going in and just really feeling it and like taking it in and like really watching and listening. It really puts you into the investigation and into the location. When you're trying to learn equipment, I like to learn things slowly, like introduce things to your investigations slowly. So like, if you have a new piece of equipment, it's just something you're using that night, as opposed to like learning 5 new things in one night, right? And plus it's easy to miss things when you're like staring at you're like, oh, let me look at my meter here, and like a full-bodied apparition walks in front of you, right? So I tell people all the time, don't discount the power of a personal experience. Once you get past trying to prove things to people, it really opens up a world to you where if evidence does not become as important as it's kind of made out to be on like TV and stuff. I love a good personal experience, but then there's obviously the obvious, like bring a flashlight, my friends. I mean, obviously our phone is good for that, but I like to have a little separate flashlight. It's a little more direct, a little more controlled. I love a good recorder, but you can also use your phone as a recorder. There's a voice memo function on there that's fabulous. And if you're in a group setting with people, just work together. Make sure you guys are kind of cohesive and you know what everyone else is bringing, what everyone else is using, and try not to stomp over each other when you're doing EVP sessions. Try to give everybody a chance. Try not to dominate the conversation. Anybody who knows been to Strange Escapes knows that I always say, like, don't be that person that everything is happening to. There's always someone in every group that's like, I got scratched, I'm getting shoved, it's so cold, I'm feeling sick. Like everything is happening to them, and everyone's just like, okay. So it's just not. That's Charlie.
I was just going to chime in. You already knew what I was going to say. That would 100% be me. I'm like, oh my God, something's trying to attack my Achilles tendon.
I'm possessed.
Oh my God. Yeah, that would 100% be me. Yeah.
If you are doing a location, that is like a private location, or even some of these like group setting ones, it could work for you to have the owner or a regular employee or someone introduce you, so that the spirits there, like kind of gives you an edge, you know, it's like you're walking into a party and it's one thing if like you just walk in and you stare at everybody and hope they talk to you versus like having the host kind of take you around and introduce you and everyone suddenly knows you're okay, right? And so I do encourage people to try to get some sort of introduction in a location if possible. You know, if that's not possible, or even if it is, make sure you state your intentions, be very clear, like why you're there, what you're hoping to do. Talk about yourself too. Like, I know it's hard to like just talk to thin air, but it helps. Don't make promises you can't keep though. That's a big one. Don't be like, we're gonna send you to the light, Carol Ann, or, you know, we're gonna bring you, we'll bring you this, or don't make any promises. Just live in the moment, have that conversation, right? Pay attention to how you feel. Yes.
Well, so I have questions about this because actually Eric in the audience here asked if Adam has the same mindset as you on being enough. Like everyone kind of approaches these situations a little bit differently. Like, do you find that you guys have a similar approach or are they different?
No, we definitely have a similar approach. Like,
Yeah.
there are some things we differ on, but like that's not one of them for sure. No, and he grew up very religious too. But yeah, no, he definitely feels the same way. And but like I said, like I understand if people feel otherwise, but I also like I tell people like it's not a ghost's goal to like attach itself to you and like
Right.
you know ride home with you like Yoda backpack. You know what I mean? Like it's not I don't think that's like, you know, I think sometimes I don't know what they think their reasoning for that would be. Like, I'm like, think
Yeah.
about it, you're a ghost. Like, why are you, I don't know why people think that will happen to them so prevalently. Like, it's one thing to think, like, you might start a conversation with a ghost or a spirit and they're interested in you. Maybe they're not done and they're like,
Yeah.
you know, I'm going to ride home with you and we're
I
going
have
to,
more to say to you. Yeah. Yeah.
but it's not like they're like wanting to swallow your soul or something, you
Well,
know?
and this is this is an interesting. I think for like I'd love to hear your perspective on this because I feel like so many of us think of ghosts as separate from us in some way, and then like you're saying, like dehumanize it, and then it becomes more terrifying, more unknown, more like irrational in terms of the way we approach the subject, rather
Mhm.
than like, what if these are people like you and I in a different setting or scenario, or what if there's a memory there that's like affecting you that of something that happened, you know, like rather than pulling yourselves away. Do you feel like it's important when you're approaching these situations to think of it in that human lens so that you relate to it more, or what, like how do you see that?
Well, yes, it's like I think about it in I humanize them in the sense that it kind of helps you understand their motivation more. You're like,
Got it.
wait,
Yeah.
why? I do find too, a lot of people who think ghosts follow them around and stuff, it's more like they want a ghost to follow them in a way. It's kind of like a special thing, like in their mind,
Yeah.
like it,
Yeah.
and so it becomes this kind of it might not have actually happened or they might have been so wrapped up in it they thought it happened or but like it does I find that a lot of people think something followed them home when in fact it did not. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So
That's a
um
common, I mean, it's a common question that we've gotten in these classes too. It's like,
it's the
has this ever
clown
happened to
ticket more
you?
than anything.
Yeah, I
It's
bet.
number one.
And what was your answer to people who felt like that had happened, or ways of handling that? Like generally, how
It
do you approach it?
depends on like it's like sometimes it's hard because they put so much stock into it and they've
Hmm.
believed it or they've told the story for so long. Like the second that I become kind of a realist about it,
Right.
sometimes it makes me the bad guy, you know? And
The
so,
tough love. Like, yeah.
yeah. And so, I have to be very gentle with it. And sometimes
Mhm.
I'm just kind of like, that's really interesting, you know, but like, um, you know, it's just it's one of the it's like one it's sometimes when people bring me their ghost photos and I know exactly what it is and I'm like, I
Yeah, yeah,
don't want
yeah.
to tell you this is not
Yeah,
your dead Uncle Bob, you know, like
right.
it's a really hard place to be in. But all I can say is like, wow, you know, I've investigated hundreds, if not thousands of times, and
Yeah,
that's, you know, well, I have had two instances where I thought something might have followed me home, but in both, it was never negative. It was more of a
right,
like inquisitive kind of
right.
moment. So.
Or the ghost was hitting on you and just wanted to like, like hang out with you, right? That's the most common, I think,
I
of
think
all
it's
the
what we
things.
all want, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That ghost thought was so hot. They
I
had
have got ghost game. I don't know what to tell you. It's a big deal.
no, one was when I was pregnant investigating actually, and
Oh
like
no.
the ghost of like a child I think followed me home. So that was
God.
one. Then the other was like at Waverly Hills. Adam and I were investigating a section that had never been investigated before. So these
Yeah.
spirits supposedly had like never really had this information or talk before.
Yeah.
And I felt like one of them followed me back to the hotel because so, but it was more of a, I literally was just like, I'm really tired. I have to go to bed. And then also you turn it around where you're like, this is awkward that you followed me here, right? And they're like, oh, I'm really embarrassed. Okay, yeah,
I
bye.
love that that's the same strategy. It's like leaving a bar as you would, but doing an investigation. You're like,
Exactly. This
it's a
is a
little
little bit
weird.
weird.
You're acting a little weird. And they're like, oh, I don't want to be a cringy, whatever. I'm
I
out
don't want
now.
to be the weird ghost.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
anyways,
Uh,
um, uh,
yeah.
but anyways, kind of along those lines, it's really important not to let confirmation bias get to you. It's very easy to want everything to be paranormal and to justify things as paranormal when they have very rational or logical explanations that are not ghost related. And so it's important to remember that having a paranormal experience, that you've ruled out everything else, that you're like, wow, this is like, there's nothing else that this could have been, or this is definitely something strange and I don't have an explanation for it. Those become a lot more, those are like very special, cherished, like important moments versus something where you're like, you want it to be a ghost so bad that you discount very obvious other explanations. And so don't fall into that trap. It's very easy, especially with some of the equipment out there. Your K2 could be going crazy, but it's not making any sense, or your REM pod's going off, but it's not like following any control questions. Like, it's very easy to fall into that trap, and just don't. And I find myself doing it sometimes, and I have to like recenter and be like, step back. Like, this could be a lot of other things. So be ready to be bored. Be ready to fall asleep. It will happen. I am, sometimes you're sitting in the dark, it's 3 a.m. and it's quiet and you're hearing like all this like kind of soft background noise, and like it's very easy to fall asleep. So yeah. I know one time we were investigating the US Mint in New Orleans, and I think it was about like 3 or 4 in the morning, and I fell asleep on a concrete floor, just out, passed out, dead to the world. Like, I was done. So I'm a big fan of not investigating till 4 in the morning. Like, that's not a requirement. So I tell people that too. I'm like, you don't have to stay up till 3 a.m., and there's no reason why you have to just investigate at nighttime, and so I love investigating in the winter because it starts to get dark at like 4 o'clock here. I love investigating in the dark because it kind of helps you rule out other things. Like, at night, everything's a lot more quiet. It's easier to explain like light anomalies. There's less traffic. Everyone's asleep. It's much easier to figure things out in that scenario. But it's also okay to start a little bit early. You don't have to be super hardcore. So people always think they want to. And, whenever I do events, sometimes I do events where they're letting investigators go till 3 in the morning. And I'm like, they're not going to make it. They don't ever make it. Some of them do, I guess. When you do get activity though, listen, especially if you have information coming at you, if you're getting great EVPs, or if you're getting like, things correlating with history you're bringing up and whatnot, like really listen to that and really keep track of it, because spirits, when they're really aggressively trying to correct something, or they have like a really powerful message they want to get through, that's when they get the most active. So make sure you're definitely paying attention in those moments. There's obviously quieter activity that's not really going to give you answers, but it's just really cool to experience. Like when you're really quiet and you hear footsteps in the distance, or you hear whispers or knocks in the same room with you and you're alone, or it's just everyone's being quiet and still, like, that's not really going to give you an answer as to who's there, but it's really cool and it's very powerful. My favorite activity, as I kind of touched on just a second ago, is interactive. I like anything that I can pair with history, so like I always call this like the perfect, like the trifecta, whenever I have like a psychic like Chip or Sarah Lamos I work with, if I can get some information like some evidence that matches with history, and then a psychic hits on it too, like unprovoked, or they come in cold, I know I've got something. So really pay attention to information, even if it doesn't make sense in that moment. Like if you get names or dates or anything, like jot that shit down and keep it, because sometimes it'll make sense years later. So definitely keep that. Now, just some things, because these are the questions people ask me a lot. My thoughts on crossing spirits over, people often ask me about that. I am not a fan of this kind of traditional idea of crossing spirits over, where this idea that we're like sending them to the light, Carol Ann, as I said earlier. It's definitely more, first of all, at first I was really on board with that back in the day. But now I find it to be very dismissive of a spirit that's trying to get in touch with you for whatever reason. I also find it to be kind of egotistical of us to assume we even know what they need, considering we can barely prove they exist. And so it's kind of this like, oh, I'm going to tell you what you need to do, even though I can't even see you or know what you're doing. I'm just going to be like, there's definitely a light. I don't know why I know, because I heard someone say it once. So there's a light. No, I don't believe that, because I've never had a spirit ever talk to me about a light. And I've had too many investigations where people have claimed to have crossed things over, and I've gone back and that same spirit has still been there, very much like, hey, I remember that time you were trying to get me to leave, you were smudging me away and telling me to go. I didn't, and now I'm angry because I'm trying to talk to you and you clearly don't want to help me. So just things to think about. Again, these are just my thoughts and what I've experienced and witnessed. People ask me about psychics. I love working with psychics, but I would never base an entire investigation on a psychic's impressions. And I'm very picky about my psychics who I work with. I like to bring them in cold so that they have no knowledge of where we are or what we're doing. And I like their impressions from that. I trust a psychic more when they are willing to admit that they can be wrong. Like, sometimes I've worked with groups where they'll have gotten all this evidence, but a psychic will be like, well, there's a little girl named Mary who fell down a well. And then everyone's like, well, there's Mary who fell down the well. That's what's here. And it's like, do we have anything to back this up? Evidence, history, anything? And I think it's important, like when psychics tell me they want to start investigating or they want to experiment with that stuff, I'm like, the best psychics I know are the ones that doubt themselves the most. And are just as excited when they get it right as you are when they get it right, So just look for traits like that for sure. I already talked about why we investigate in the dark. And so I think that's like my high level things, but I have questions here I want to talk about. Tina asks, when you hear sad stories during your research, how do you separate yourself afterward? Is it easy to switch off, or do you end up carrying some of it with you? That's a very good question. And so for the first season of Kindred Spirits, we did ghost hunters for a very long time, and I've investigated separately for a very long time. But that first season of Kindred, man, every family that we helped had been through like some really awful trauma. And so not only were the stories like, the history, not only was that really disturbing, but I was also meeting people firsthand who were just looking me in the face, very devastated. And I was seeing firsthand what happened to people when tragedy unexpectedly struck. And I was still, a pretty new mom at the time. And so I started having, I'd already had a bit of a history of anxiety, but I full on started having panic attacks that first season. And so did Adam. And so that was when I really had to kind of take a step back and really disassociate myself from some of that. And it's on kind of a more intense and visceral level. I think that first responders have to do that sort of thing too. But obviously they see the word, what I go through is nothing compared to that. And so I think there are some kind of coping mechanisms you have to learn. And I think that's an important thing too. I tell people this before they investigate, is that you have to be ready to be in touch with your own mortality, because you're surrounding yourself with death and stories of death and dying. And And so yeah, if that's not something you're super comfortable with, it might not be for you, and that's okay. Some people don't want to investigate. They just want to hear the spooky stories, at Halloween and then get on with their life, and that's very fair, and I can understand that completely. So, um, let's see. What other questions do we have here? Do you have anything good for me, Charlie? Oh,
Yep. There are a couple here. 1 second here.
because I know sometimes some end up in the chat, and that one I can't keep up with.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, there's questions here like Eric is asking sort of a more technical question. He's going to the Queen Mary on Friday, and he has a digital recorder. And this is we talked about in the other class about
Oh yeah.
recorders, audio technology, EVP. But he just asked, would it be worth it to have it on and see if anything's picked up, or do you find that responses are more likely if asked directly and sort of like actively trying to engage?
The hardest thing about just keeping a recorder on, and this is the other thing, like you have to be a realist about ourselves and our human nature, is that we're really good at selective memory. And so if you leave your recorder running, it's very easy to go back and listen to it and then be like, there was no one talking at that time. And you're like, are you sure? Like, it's one of those things like when people say to me, I have this photo at Gettysburg from 25 years ago, and there was no soldier in the background when I took this. And I'm like, are you sure? Because like back, you're looking in a viewfinder and you're taking the picture and then you're developing it a week later and there's a historical actor in the background potentially, or is it a ghost?
Yeah.
I don't know, and so I think maybe in a controlled setting where you're asking questions and, 15, 20 minutes at a time, I think that's very fair. And also the Queen Mary, we're doing a Strange Escapes there in January. It's one of my favorite places to investigate. But the walls are paper thin too. So you have to be really like tag everything. We'll go into this more in like the equipment class, but just make sure you tag anything that you hear. So
yeah, as a reminder, we have 2 other classes. We have paranormal etiquette for class 2, and then we'll get into the technology side, class 3.
yes.
Manny asks, do you have any tips or recommendations on investigating in a cemetery during the day?
I mean, you can try. I find that most cemeteries don't have a lot of activity. And a big part of that is like, think about yourself when you're dead. Is that gonna, like, are you gonna hang out at your grave? Like, is that where you're gonna haunt,
I know. Yeah. Disneyland got it. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think if anything, those cemeteries can have a lot of residual energy there based on kind of, again, I think a lot of ghosts are actually created by us, that like energy comes from us, and sometimes traumatic experiences or really emotional moments can create paranormal activity in a sense. And so a cemetery might have a lot of that going on. So, I mean, there's no reason you can't go and try. I just investigated a cemetery over the summer that was very interesting, but I'd had an experience there in high school, so I went back. And so, yeah, so it's definitely okay. I like cemeteries because I like finding the old graves, and I research the people and I find out their stories just because I'm curious. So, but yeah.
And Brandon asks, and Brandon has all 3 classes, but Brandon asks, I'm new to using a spirit box. What settings should I be using? Forward sweep, reverse sweep, sweep rate, antenna on, antenna off, etc. Thank you.
It's always up to you, like what works best for you. I am a fan of forward, 200 sweep rate, and I usually have the antenna up for sure, but that's just me. Some people like to use it backwards, and it also depends on what you're using it for. But we can get more into that in the tech class. But yeah, that's what I tend to sweep forward 200 at a 200 sweep rate, and I usually have it on FM too. So
the spirit box when we did our live hunt was nuts.
I know, it was really
in the princess room. I was like,
oh yeah, what? That was really crazy.
What is going on?
That's a fun live stream to go back and watch.
Yeah, totally.
Let me see Karen's question. If you aren't sure who's haunting a specific spot, what questions do you start with to try and find that? Well, that's just it. Like, She was asking if you aren't sure who is haunting a specific spot, what questions do you start with to try and find that foundation with some of these places where numerous families have come through over time? I could see it being very overwhelming to know where to even start. We'll get into that more in the research class, but you have to just go through all those names. Like that's the reality of it. Like sometimes I'll lay them out and see if I get a response with equipment near them, but you'll have the time. I've been in places there's been, 50 or 60 people associated with the house, and I've just gone through each name and asked questions. I bring up history of each person, and yeah, it's can be tedious, but um, Robin's asking, I live in a 180-year-old house. I know my house is haunted. Is there a way I can talk to them? Though all the stuff we just discussed, use your phone. I mean, also though, be careful what you wish for. Like, if this is just a casually haunted house where you're hearing a knock here and there or a little like
Yeah.
footstep or whatever, like, that's one thing. If they're really bothering you and genuinely like trying to like tell you something, then that might be worth it. But, once you open that door, if they get excited, they're like, oh wow, she's talking to us. Maybe the
Exactly.
neighbor ghost is like, over there, they're talking
Let's
to us.
go.
We're
Yeah,
going over
yeah, yeah,
there.
yeah. Yeah, I know. Yeah. It gets very peoply all of a sudden, and we're
All
not
of a
into that in
sudden,
real
you're like,
life.
wait, what did I do?
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
I love it. I love it.
Well, this has been awesome. You have these two other classes coming up. You've got the paranormal etiquette class, and you've got Know Before You Ghost, which is more of the research piece of it. Are there anything you want to tease out about that, and also anything you want to talk about with your upcoming appearances and work? Because I know I think you're the busiest I've ever seen you right now, and
It's a little crazy.
I'm afraid for your safety right now. Um,
Yeah. I have a bunch of appearances coming up. If anybody's going to Penhurst next month, that's a big one. That convention is probably the biggest paranormal convention in the country. And then this fall, I get super busy. I'm going to Dragon Con, Phenomicon, tons of stuff. And, I have the podcast has 2 or 3 more new episodes for this season. Haunted Road season 6.
also,
Food
don't
to
forget about
Die
this.
For is still selling
Still
very
going.
strong. I cook out of that book all the time. Right now, I'm in the process. So we're doing the next book. I can't.
Yeah. Wait, what? You're
Yeah,
doing the
so
next
I'm doing
book?
another cookbook.
Another one?
HarperCollins. Yeah, HarperCollins loved it, so we're making another, like a sequel,
Amazing.
that's going to cover like more international locations too. So it's like all over the world.
Amazing.
It's called Cuisine to Kill For, and probably was not supposed to say that.
Oops.
It's so funny though, because like right now I was just researching for Penhurst. We have a recipe from Penhurst that came from this book called Large Quantity Recipes. This
A lot of
is
food.
this is when you're in an institution in the, early 1900s. These
Oh,
are
wow.
and like it's so crazy the recipes in here. Like there's there's literally 4 different ham loaf recipes.
Oh,
Let's see what else is in here. Oh no, there's 5. There's ham loaf 1, ham loaf 2, ham loaf 3, glazed ham loaf, caramel ham loaf, jellied ham loaf.
a lot
So,
of ham loaves. I don't know. Do we need
I
5?
think the recipe we are going to try, though we're not, we have to make it first, is shrimp wiggle, because they made that. It's called shrimp
It
wiggle.
sounds delicious.
I'll let you know. You guys are getting a
Okay. All right.
major sneak peek right now.
Yeah.
So I think that's what I was gonna try to do a tuna and celery casserole, but then I saw the shrimp wiggle and I was like, oh no, we're gonna
Yep.
go all in
Here we
here.
go.
So there's your
And
sneak peek, guys.
I know that you've got, we were talking before we started, you have a number of appearances that are about to be put up on the site too, right? You're updating that.
Yeah, they're not all
So,
up yet. So
got it.
right now they're expecting I'll do probably 20 to 30 tour stops in the fall. So
Oh my God.
I know. So as soon as that comes out, I
Yeah.
will keep
Okay.
updating my social media.
Yeah,
Yeah,
follow her everywhere because that's where you will find out. It just
yeah,
happens
exactly.
every day. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then
Um,
whoever's asking about the Strange Escape sites, soon, this week, hopefully. So I
yeah.
have to add Gettysburg and the Queen Mary to the site.
Heather in the audience also said the cocktails and food to die for are excellent and so yummy, and I fully agree with that.
They
They're
are
so good.
so good. So
We made some the last time.
oh,
They
we
were
did.
great.
And then anyone who's not in the paranormal circle, you should be in the paranormal circle. It's
Yeah,
like
totally, totally.
it's my membership program, but it's like we do a ton of live stream investigations. There's a whole forum and like Facebook group. There's
Yep,
discounts. There's live camera feeds from my attic when it's not when the ghosts aren't destroying them.
yep,
So
yep,
yeah,
yep.
there's a lot going on in there. I see
Love it.
there's a lot of circle members in the
There's a
audience.
lot of circle members in here. Yeah, because
Yeah.
yeah, you get all the updates and
They got a discount today. Yeah. So,
great, good.
mhm.
Well, we're gonna have fun in our next two classes. They're coming up over the next few weeks, and I'm excited because these I love diving in deeper because I always hear a new story or a new thing, and then I'm like, oh, okay, and it affirms kind of like, I've had some experiences in my life that I can't explain that were very helpful. When my grandfather passed, like no one could get into his safe, and I feel like he was there, and he told me the combination, and I opened it, and
Really? And it worked?
it worked. Yeah, no one could
That's
get it to work, and
crazy.
that's the wildest. And I just having little moments like that, I think it affirms like that we don't know everything, and
No.
it was always fun to dive into it.
You're
So
coming to Gettysburg, right? Didn't we talk about
I
that?
am coming to Gettysburg. Am I
Charlie's
gonna be
gonna have his
scared out of
first
my
train
mind though? I don't
escape.
know. He's like, I think someone's trying to get me. Like I'm gonna be, yeah, I'll be fully.
Don't worry, it'll be fine.
No, no skibbity. That's even worse than ghosts. Stop it. Well, okay, so we're going to be moving on to our meet and greets now. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Thank you, Amy, for this awesome, yeah, the dad jokes. Whew, gonna get my dad jokes ready for that one, Gettysburg. But yeah, thanks, Amy, for another fun day, and yeah, two more to go. We're gonna have some fun.
I know, I'm excited. Thank you, everybody.